On August 23, 1973, 4 hostages were locked inside a bank vault in Stockholm for 6 days. When the police finally broke through, one of the hostages refused to walk out first. She was afraid the police would shoot the men who had held her captive. Think about that. Guns had been pointed at her head. She had been wired with explosives. And when rescue arrived, her fear was not for herself. It was for the man who terrorized her. Her name was Kristin Enmark. She was 23 years old. And during those 6 days, she did something that doctors still cannot fully explain. She called the Prime Minister of Sweden to argue against her own rescue. She told him she trusted the robbers. She said the police were the real danger. She begged to be allowed to leave the bank with her captors in a getaway car of her own free will. The whole country listened on the radio, and the whole country was confused. How does a person come to protect the hand that hurts them? How does loyalty grow inside a cage? That question did not end in 1973. It walks beside you right now, in offices, in marriages, in friendships that quietly drain you. Because what happened inside that vault was not weakness. It was a survival program buried deep in the human brain. And once you understand how it switches on, you will start seeing it everywhere. We tell ourselves a comforting story. We say that if someone hurt us, we would leave. We would fight. We would never make excuses for them. But the records say otherwise. Across decades, in war camps, in cults, in violent homes, the same strange pattern appears. Victims defend their abusers. They cover for them. They miss them when they are gone. And here is the detail almost everyone misses. This is not stupidity. It is not love. Not really. It is not even a choice. It is a bond. A chemical, emotional bond that forms under a very specific recipe. Fear, mixed with sudden kindness, mixed with total control. Psychologists later gave the Stockholm event a name: trauma bonding. The mind, trapped with no escape, does the only thing it can to survive. It stops fighting the threat. It starts loving it. Sounds insane, until it happens to you. You have probably defended someone who treated you badly. A boss, a partner, a parent. You found yourself explaining their cruelty to your own friends. The question is not whether this lives inside us. The question is how easily it switches on. And to understand that switch, we have to go back into the vault, back to the exact hour when 4 terrified strangers should have hated the men with the guns, but didn't. The morning began like any other. Tellers counted bills. Customers waited in line. The smell of coffee in a calm Swedish bank. Then a man pulled a submachine gun from under a folded jacket and fired into the ceiling. His name was Jan-Erik Olsson, an escaped convict. He had one demand the police could not ignore. He wanted his friend released from prison and brought to the bank. The police agreed. They delivered a second criminal straight into the building. Now there were 2 armed men and 4 hostages sealed inside a vault the size of a small bedroom. No daylight, 1 toilet, ropes around their necks, dynamite nearby. By every rule we believe about human nature, those 6 days should have built pure hatred. Every hour of captivity should have made the hostages despise their captors more. The opposite happened. Somewhere in that concrete box, in the dark, fear quietly turned into something else. And the first crack appeared not in the walls, but inside Kristin's mind. It started with one small act of kindness from a man who had a gun. one coat over cold shoulders. And that single gesture would rewire how she saw everything. Picture the math your brain is doing inside that vault. The man with the gun controls everything. Whether you eat, whether you sleep, whether you live to see your family again, he is the entire universe, and the universe is holding a weapon. Then he does something small. Kristin was cold. Olsen draped a coat over her shoulders. That is all. A coat. But to a nervous system flooded with terror for hours, that gesture did not feel small. It felt enormous. It felt like mercy. It felt like being saved by the very person who put her in danger. This is the trap, and it is biological. When we expect pain and receive kindness instead, the brain releases a wave of relief. So powerful it feels like gratitude. It feels like connection. It feels, to the trapped mind, almost like love. Olsen later let Kristin call her family. He comforted her when she shook. When she said she was scared of dying, he told her not to worry. And each kindness landed on a mind that had no exit, no escape, no other source of safety in the world. Here is the cruel logic. The same man who created the fear became the only one who could relieve it. The threat and the comfort wore the same face, and the brain cannot hold both at once. So it chooses. It chooses to believe in the comfort, because believing in the threat is unbearable. It bonds to the kindness and quietly buries the danger. Kristin would later say it plainly. The robbers, she felt, were protecting her from the police. That was not confusion. That was the program working exactly as designed. But a coat is one thing. A phone call to the most powerful man in the country is another. Because what Kristin did next would prove this bond was not a passing feeling. It was now steering her choices. On the third day, Kristin Enmark picked up a phone line and asked to speak to the Prime Minister of Sweden, Olof Palme. The country was listening, and she did not beg him to rescue her. She argued with him. She told him she was disappointed in him. She said he was playing with her life by refusing the robbers' demands. She said she fully trusted the men holding the guns, and that the real threat, the thing that frightened her most, was the police outside. She asked permission to leave the bank with her captors, to climb into their getaway car, willingly. Imagine the Prime Minister of a nation holding the phone, hearing a young woman defend the criminal pointing, a weapon at her head. Palm warned her she could be killed. Kristin's answer became famous. She said she would rather go with the robbers than stay another moment with the police. The whole country heard a victim choose her captor on live radio, and almost no one understood what they were hearing. But you do now. That voice was not foolish. It was not in love. It was a human being whose survival system had picked a side, and picked the only side that felt safe inside the cage. The siege would end within days. The bond would not. And what happened after those vault doors finally opened reveals the most disturbing truth of all. How long this loyalty can outlive the danger that created it. On the sixth day, the police drilled through the ceiling and pumped tear gas into the vault. The end came fast. The men surrendered. The hostages were finally free. But watch what happened in those final seconds, because it is the part history almost forgot. The police ordered the hostages to come out first. It was the logical command. Get the innocent people to safety, then deal with the armed men. The hostages refused. They would not leave before Olsen and his accomplice. They were afraid the police would open fire the moment the captors were exposed. so they insisted on staying close, shielding the very men who had held guns to their heads for 6 days. At the doorway, there were handshakes. There were hugs. One hostage and one captor embraced before they were separated. Kristin reportedly called out, warning the men not to be hurt. Think about that. The cage was open. Freedom was 3 steps away. And their first instinct wasn't to run toward the police. It was to protect the criminals from the police. To the officers, this looked insane. To the survival program running inside those minds, it was perfectly consistent. For 6 days, the threat had been outside the vault, in uniforms and rifles. The safety had been inside, holding the dynamite. Opening a door does not rewrite 6 days of conditioning in a single breath. The bodies walked out. The wiring stayed behind. And here is where most people assume the story ends. The danger is over. The captors are in handcuffs. The spell should fade with the daylight. But it didn't. Because the most unsettling chapter of all began only after everyone was safe. The siege was over. The captors were in prison. By every expectation, the hostages should have begun to hate them now. Safe, free, finally able to feel the rage. It never came. In the weeks that followed, the survivors struggled to feel anger toward the men who had terrorized them. Some reportedly refused to testify against them. Some are said to have visited them. The fear that should have curdled into hatred had hardened instead into something like loyalty. Kristin Enmark spent years trying to explain a feeling the world insisted was impossible. She was not naive. She was not weak. She had simply survived the only way a trapped mind knows how, by bonding to the source of both her terror and her relief. A psychiatrist named Niels Bayerot, advising the police from outside, watched a victim defend her captor and reached for a label. He called it Stockholm Syndrome, after the square where the bank stood. The world would rename it after the city, Stockholm Syndrome. The name stuck so well that we forgot what it actually describes. It is not a disease of the foolish. It is the brain doing exactly what evolution built it to do. When escape is impossible, attach to power, soften the threat, and survive the unsurvivable by loving it. The captors served their time. The label outlived them all. And a question began to surface that has nothing to do with a bank in 1973. Because if 6 days in a vault could rewire 4 ordinary minds this completely, minds no different from yours, then the real question is not what happened in Stockholm. It is how often this same machinery is running, quietly, in lives that never make the news, including, perhaps, your own. Here is the part that should stay with you long after the names fade. Stockholm Syndrome did not need a gun. It needed only 3 ingredients: a perceived threat to your survival, an inability to escape, and small though unpredictable acts of kindness from the very person causing the harm. Read that list again. Then think about the relationship where someone hurts you, then comforts you, then hurts you again. The job that drains you, then throws you one word of praise that keeps you loyal for months. The home where fear and affection wear the same face. The vault is not always concrete. Sometimes it is built from love, from money, from fear of being alone. And the door is not always locked from the outside. Sometimes we have simply stopped believing we are allowed to walk through it. The cruel genius of this bond is that it disguises itself as devotion. The trapped mind does not feel manipulated. It feels grateful. It defends the cage. It argues, like Kristin on the phone, that the people trying to help are the real danger. That is why understanding this matters. Not so you can diagnose strangers, but so you can recognize the pattern when relief starts to feel like love. When the only person comforting you is the one creating the fear. 4 people walked into a Swedish bank and learned something the rest of us spend lifetimes avoiding. The mind will do anything to survive. Even love what is hurting it. The vault doors in Stockholm opened 50 years ago. The question that Siege left behind is still standing in your own life, quietly waiting. Which doors are you protecting that were never meant to hold you? Kristin Enmark did not vanish into the footnote that bears her city's name. She grew up. She became a social worker, someone who sits with people on the worst days of their lives in rooms where fear and trust tangle together. Perhaps that was no accident. Perhaps you spend your life studying the thing that once studied you. For 5 decades, she insisted on something the world refused to hear, that her fear had been rational, that in that vault, the police really could have gotten her killed, that bonding with the men holding the rope was not madness, it was arithmetic. The captors were the only ones close enough to keep her alive. She was not defending criminals. She was describing survival from the inside, where it always looks different than it does from the safety of a newspaper. And that is the part we keep getting wrong. We name the syndrome after her, then use the name to mock people like her. We turned her clearest act of intelligence into a punchline. She survived twice, once in the vault, and once for the rest of her life, against the story everyone told about her, which leaves only one door left to open. Not hers, yours. So here is the uncomfortable truth this story leaves on the table. You have probably already met your captor, not with a gun, with a smile. A person, a job, a habit, a belief that hurts you on Tuesday and comforts you on Wednesday, until you can no longer tell the wound from the bandage. The mind that bonds to its own pain does not feel broken. It feels loyal. It feels like love. That is the trap, not the cage, but the gratitude for the hand that built it. The 4 hostages walked out of that vault in 6 days. Some people never walk out of theirs at all. They decorate it. They defend it. They call it home. The most dangerous prisons are the ones we've stopped trying to leave, because we've started to love the person holding the key. And that is the question this film cannot answer for you. 50 years ago, 4 strangers learned that the human mind will love almost anything to survive, even the thing trying to destroy it. So before the screen goes dark, sit with the hardest question of all, trapped in that vault, terrified, certain the police might be the ones to kill you. What would you have done? Would your mind have stayed loyal to fear, or found the courage to walk out? Tell me below. Be honest. The honest answers are always the ones that frighten us most. And if you're the kind of person who looks straight at the truths most people spend their whole lives avoiding, then stay close. Follow. The next door we open goes deeper into the dark than this one. And some of you already know which door you're protecting. The light is still on. The door is still open. The only question left is whether you'll walk through it.